Hi guys, it's Hump Day lesson day. Time for a guitar lesson. First of all, let me say something I think is funny. Someone said, how can I know what Hump Day means if I don't have a job? And I thought, you mean I have to be a slave to know what a word means? LOL. Some humor can come from hate too. Anyway, just kidding. JK. So I want to do a lesson today. I want to start with some technical things that maybe everybody knows, but let's just go over them anyway. And then I want to do some scale things and theoretical things. Last lesson I did was on how to play Surfing with the, Flying in a Blue Dream by Joe Satriani. That was an example of actually teaching a song for the lesson. Sometimes that's cool. I like to do that, but people have tabs they look up, and it's not so much necessary all the time. But for that one song, I wanted to do a lesson on just how to play Flying in a Blue Dream. But I don't always do that. I don't always just teach songs because it seems like that's easy to get information. I don't use tabs, but people think I do, but whatever. I just use my ear. But anyway, this time it's going to be more of a technical, theoretical lesson. I hope that's okay. First, let's talk about some technique. First of all, I think it's important to use the pinky on the left hand. It's not just being a good boy, like they call it the good boy technique, versus the bad boy technique, where the bad boy technique you use 3 fingers and the good boy technique you use 4. It really sounds different to play a lick with the pinky versus playing it with the without the pinky. It just sounds different. If I play this with the pinky, that sounds different then. It just does. And only that, with the pinky you can stretch further, of course. It sounds different to me when you use third finger as the highest finger, the finger that's stretching the furthest. It's a different. Eric Johnson even commented on this. He said it's a different vibe. The pinky has a different vibe than non-pinky fingers. It just does. I think that sounds different than if you were to do it the bad way. It just sounds different. It sounds, and I like the sound of the pinky being used. And next, it's about technique, is the tapping. Because I pick with my thumb and first finger, which is standard technique, I like to tap with my second and third fingers on my right hand, not the first finger, because if you do the first finger, you have to either let your pick down or you have to switch it to this, and there's a lot of back and forth stuff. Paul Gilbert does that, and but I don't like that either sound or the way it looks when a player is doing it, because it looks like they're fumbling with their pick. I like more the Steve Vai or George Lynch approach, or also Red Beach approach, where you use the other fingers of the tapping hand to tap. And I think like I said with the pinky, I think the third finger and the second finger get a different sound also. Plus, if you use the second and the third fingers, you have more options where you don't have to move around as fast. Like if you're switching strings, like say I'm playing a lick like this. That's easier to do with both fingers than it is if I only use one. It's more jumping around, and also it sounds different to use the third finger versus the second finger when you tap. I like to use 2 fingers, the second and third fingers when I tap. Try to get a good sound here. It sounds smoother when you do a lot of string-to-string tapping than if you just were to use 1 finger. So that's just my opinion. And then finally, and not finally, but also, I want to talk about alternate picking. Now, everybody knows about alternate picking. I learned it by mistake. I learned it by a dream I had in like 1995. The year I got stabbed in the back, and I had this weird dream, and I woke up and I was able to do alternate picking. I guess that was the trade-off for getting stabbed in the back. They kind of went hand in hand. I had one calamity, but I also made the biggest single technical breakthrough I'd probably ever made on guitar, second or first to learning tapping when I learned eruption when I was 16. That and alternate picking were the 2 biggest, and maybe when I first started doing a bar of across the 1 fret with 1 finger, that was a big breakthrough. So those 3 breakthroughs are probably the biggest technical breakthroughs I ever had, barring 1 fret, tapping, I've been playing about, however long I've been playing, a year or whatever, and then alternate picking. But I want to discuss a little difference I came up with lately, just by trial and error, but it works for me, is the way you hold the picking hand. I had always been doing it freehand, not free, but setting it on the guitar, but never anchoring these 3 fingers. I would just do freehand like that. There's a lot of sloppiness that happens, plus you can't be that fast because you're moving more. You tend to move your whole arm. So what I'm lately doing is the Michelangelo approach, where you put the 3 fingers that you're not using to pick on the guitar, and then just go back and forth really fast. It's very efficient. It holds the hand in one place, and you can go faster. I also like the sound of it. It's very machine gun sound. Sometimes I don't nail the middle finger so much because it's the closest finger to the first finger. Sometimes it's just the third and fourth finger. But one way or the other, fingers are set on the guitar. Yeah, sometimes the second finger's up in the air, but the third and fourth are on the guitar. I like the feel of it, I like the sound of it, and I like the look of it. You have to look cool too, with guitar playing. LOL, just joking, maybe not. I like that, I really do. I like the way it feels and sounds and the whole deal. And I just came up with that by accident. I was just playing one day and I realized, well, if I do that, it sounds a little different. It's like I can do that all day almost and not get tired of it. It's fun. But then if I did it all day, I'd get tired. I guess that's an oxymoron. I contradicted myself. But anyway. And I'm going to use that from probably now on until, as long as I'm playing guitar. I like that. Now that I've discovered it, I like it. It's a different feel than playing with all-out fingers hanging all over the place, and the whole arm moving, and I don't like that anymore. Okay, so that's my technique. Thought. Do I have any thoughts for sweep picking and string skipping? Because those are the 5. To me, there's legato, alternate picking, tapping, string skipping, and sweeping are the main techniques. Sweeping, do I have anything new for that? I sweep with the fingers down also. If I don't, I should. There's minor triads. Yeah, with the fingers anchored, it sounds smooth. And then with string skipping, just know that you're skipping strings, and you have to go. Sometimes you have to go like different rates to cross the strings to make it sound the same. Like in the Paul Gilbert lick he does for the intro to Tim's for Rock #1. It's like this. It's like the near strings have to go slower. further strings, you have to speed up because you're covering more ground. You want to keep it rhythmically equal. That way I'm doing it in G minor instead of E minor. Paul did it in E minor. I'm doing it here in G minor. But just know that it takes more time to go further. So if you're doing a lick that has strings that go 1, 2, 3 or whatever, go faster when you're going further and slower when you're going closer, so you keep the same time value. That was hit in E and A minor, harmonic minor that is. With E minor. Anyway, my picks are getting dull, which is why I ordered a few more from Bertrand's Music. I'm having some new ones ordered coming in soon. I play them till they're raw, but then I need new ones. LOL. Here's C sharp minor. So, and then there's string skipping with tapping, there's string skipping with alternate picking, there's tapping, and then there's string skipping licks, like arpeggio licks. There's, like I said, picking with string skipping, and tapping with string skipping. So anyway, that's my brief rundown on now let's do some scales and theory like that. I think it's interesting the interplay between pentatonic and diatonic scales. A pentatonic and a diatonic scale placed correctly make a chromatic scale. If I'm in E Dorian, I would have E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, and E. Those are all the guitar keys, by the way. The keys that spell E Dorian are all the guitar keys. E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, and E. The non-guitar keys are the keys that are formed by an F minor pentatonic scale, which is all the notes that are not in the E Dorian mode. Okay? And that would be F, A flat, B flat, C, E flat, and then back to F. Those are all the non-guitar keys. That's the keys that don't sound so good on guitar. I like to play all the keys though. I like to play everything everywhere. In fact, I like to play non-guitar keys sometimes just to sound different, you know. And plus, a Dorian mode is basically a minor pentatonic, like if I have E Dorian. That's actually E minor pentatonic, which is all the frets on the 12th fret, all the strings on the 12th fret, and all the notes in an F sharp minor pentatonic, which is all the notes on the 14th fret. So those two pentatonic scales, a whole tone apart, make a diatonic scale. And an E minor pentatonic and an F sharp minor pentatonic make an E Dorian, because E Dorian has the 2 chord of Dorian is Phrygian, and Phrygian is also a minor 7th, or has a minor. Phrygian is also a minor pentatonic. Phrygian has a minor pentatonic scale with it. So your Dorian minor pentatonic plus your Phrygian minor pentatonic make your E Dorian. Guess what's in between? The 5 notes in the pentatonic scale a half step above the Dorian make the other 5 notes that make up the whole chromatic scale that aren't in E Dorian. And those would be, in this case, F minor pentatonic, because F is between E and F sharp. So all those notes in F minor pentatonic are all the notes not in an E Dorian. And like I said, all the notes in E Dorian are the guitar keys: E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, A, and E. And all the notes that are non-guitar keys are the notes that make up F minor pentatonic, which is F, A flat, B flat, C, E flat, and E flat. Like I said, I think we're back to F, but that's already said that. So, and that's the basis of Steve Vai's lick that I love. He does, like if I'm in A Dorian, I have A Dorian here, I have B Dorian here, not B Dorian, I have A minor pentatonic, B minor pentatonic, which make A Dorian. Then up here, an octave higher, I have A minor pentatonic. So he goes, see that? I'm using the Dorian pentatonic up here, and the Dorian and Phrygian pentatonics down below to make basically A Dorian. A minor pentatonic plus B minor pentatonic and A minor pentatonic above make A Dorian. Move it to different keys, but B Dorian, C sharp Dorian, D Dorian, E Dorian. Even do an octave higher, 2 octaves up on the E Dorian. Only case you can do that by going like this. So the Dorian's actually 2 octaves up because I'm on the 24th fret rather than the 12th. Okay, same thing as this. But up here. You know, that's a cool lick. And then I like the way the difference between diatonic and pentatonic scales is mirrored in the difference between triads and 7th chords. 7th chords are 4-note chords, and triads are 3-note chords. Hence the word triad. Triads. Let's say I have a major triad. A major triad to E major triad to A major triad. So when I go from E major triad to A major triad, I'm going upward, so that 5-1 is an upward leading sound. That's why the authentic cadence sounds powerful. It's 5-1. It goes up in pitch when you change from one chord to the other. 5-1 is upward. However, the plagal cadence is the opposite. It's 4-1, and that's downward. So the 4 chord in from A would be D major. That's this chord. And then to play D to A, D major to A major, it goes down a 4th, or from 4-1 rather than 5-1, and that's downward leading. The plagal cadence, or the A-man cadence. Not as powerful as. So in triads, 5-1 is less power, 4-1 is less power, and 5-1 is authentic, and 4-1 is plagal, or A-man cadence. But don't think it ends there, because in 7th chords, it reverses itself. Let's do a dominant 7th chord, and let's do that like in blues, and let's do the same idea I just did, but with dominant 7th chords instead of major triad. Let's try that and see what the heck happens. Well, let's say in A dominant 7th or A 7th is this. Now here, D is the 4 chord in A, and D dominant 7th is this. What happens though when you go from 4-1, which is plagal cadence, you actually go up in pitch with 7th chords instead of down in pitch. So the power in 7th chords, or which is used in blues and jazz, is 4-1. Plagal is power because you're going up. 4 to 1 goes up. And 5 to 1, authentic, is downward, and which is weaker. 5 to 1 isn't strong with 7 chords. 4 to 1 is, and 5 to 1 is weak, and 4 to 1 is strong. Along the circle of fifths action with 7 chords versus there is more 4 chords in a blues progression than 5 chords. Have you noticed that? You go 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 5, 4, 1. Why is 5 only played once and only for 1 bar of 12 when 4 is played more and more bars of it? Because 4 to 1 in dominant 7 chords is upward movement, which is stronger. That's why for blues you don't have a lot of 5 to 1s. You have a lot of 4 to 1, 4 to 1s. 4 is the new power in blues versus in classical. It's 5 to 1 with the triads. It's different. It's different between pentatonic scales and diatonic scales. 7 note scales versus 5 note scales. It reverses itself too. And that's why they said in the 1980s, they said, well, Keith Richards has more than 4-1 up his sleeve. Well, why would they say 4-1 if classical makes it 5-1 is 5-1 is the strength? Because in rock and roll, like Keith Richards plays, it's 4-1 is the power. So more than 1-4 up his sleeve, not 1-5. If you talk to Andre Segovia, you would say more than 1-5 up his sleeve. Because in classical music, 5 is the strong progression. So there's that. I love that dichotomy between 7th chords and triads, the same as I like it between pentatonic scales and diatonic scales. 4 to 1 is upward movement, just like in triads. 5 to 1 is upward movement. That blew my mind for a while when I realized that. It took me like a year to get my head around that. The same is true of pentatonic scales versus diatonic scales. In pentatonic scales, if I have A minor pentatonic, if I go up to D position of that, I have the D position, which is the 4 position, is a flat. It has a note flatted in it. And the 5 position has a sharp in it. That's the opposite of diatonic scales, because in A major, the 4 chord would have a sharp in it. The 4 chord or 4 scale is Lydian. Lydian is an island with a sharp 4. The 5 key is mixed Lydian, which has a flat note, because the mixed Lydian is a major scale or island mode with a flat 7. So 5 up from 1 to 5 makes a flat. 1 to 4 makes a sharp. In diatonic scales, but in pentatonic scales, A minor pentatonic, and A, go to D is a flat. Go to E, the 5th is a sharp. See, it's reversed. So therefore, if I play an A minor pentatonic and go to a D minor pentatonic, I'm going to do a sharp. One note has to be sharp to get that. Because there's a flat if I do the A minor pentatonic on the 10th position or D position. So going up a 4th is sharp. But see, in diatonic scales, going up a 4th is flat, because if I start with an A Ionian mode, D is a D Lydian mode. To get Lydian to be Ionian, you have to flat a note in it, so it becomes flat, which is a D Ionian. That means going up a 4th is flat. Flat. You have to flat if you go up a 4th to get the same scale you started with. Whereas the 5th in Ionian, in diatonic, A Ionian is E mixed Lydian. So to get a mixolydian to be an Ionian, you have to sharpen a note in it to make E Ionian, therefore going with fifth is sharp. The moral of the story is, when you go up in fifths, diatonically, you go in the sharp direction if you're changing keys. That's i.e. C Ionian is no sharps, no flats. G Ionian is 1 sharp. D Ionian is 2 sharps. A Ionian is 3 sharps, etc. You're going around the circle of fifths to go sharp-wise, and then down the circle of fifths to go flat-wise. So C Ionian, no sharps or flats. F Ionian, 1 flat. D flat Ionian, 2 flats. E flat Ionian, 3 flats. It's the reverse with pentatonic. If I started with C minor pentatonic, G minor pentatonic would be 1 flat. D minor pentatonic would be 2 flats, and A minor pentatonic would be 3 flats. And if I went counterclockwise, if C minor pentatonic is what I start with, F minor pentatonic would be 1 sharp. B flat minor pentatonic would be 1 sharp, and E flat minor pentatonic would be 3 sharps. Switches, just like the 7th chord versus triads switch, the pentatonic versus diatonic scales switch. I think that's fascinating. I learned that. You know where I learned that from? I learned that from learning the solo to Good Times, Bad Times by Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, and he's doing this great solo. I don't know it anymore, but I was learning it. And I noticed that when I went up to D, let's say A, it's the same thing but with a flat. And I thought, there's something to that, because if I go up to the 5th position, it's a sharp. So if you want to make if you want to modulate from A minor pentatonic to D minor pentatonic, you have to sharpen up. And that's, sharp is going up in fourths, not up in fifths, as it is in diatonic scales. If I'm playing A minor pentatonic and I want to play E minor pentatonic, I have to flat a note. So going up a fifth in pentatonic scales is going in the flat direction, not the sharp direction like it is in diatonic scales. I think that's all cool. I think I'm fascinated by the mathematicalness and symmetry of that. And then also there's a play between 7th chords and triads and pentatonic scales versus diatonic scales in the 4 styles of music that I define in my Gist of Music Theory. Jazz is diatonic scales and 7th chords, which is the most complex because you have 7-note scales and 4-note chords. So while you're playing the diatonic scale, you're playing 7th chords. I'll try it again. Okay, classical is the second most complex because you have diatonic scales, but triad. Okay, then blues is the third or second to least complex because you have pentatonic scales and 7th chords. country music is the simplest. You have pentatonic scales and triads. Bonehead. I'm not trying to put country music down. It is a thing. Four styles of music, all with varying different usages of diatonic scales versus pentatonic scales and seventh chords versus triads. I hate to be so, almost hate to be, but I kind of like to be so mathematical about analyzing music, but it really comes down to that. There's the four styles. Country is pentatonic and triad. Blues is pentatonic and seventh chords. Classical is triads and diatonic scales, and jazz is diatonic scales and seventh chords. If you just know that, there's the four permutations. If you have two variables here and two variables here, you have square and there's four possibilities. Those possibilities are jazz, classical, blues, and country. So that's how I define, that's how I break it down for me in my head, you know. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the lesson. Love you guys, peace, love, and rock and roll.